Hey, welcome to Enterprise Conversations with the Node.js Foundation. I'm Michael Rogers, Community Manager for the Foundation, and I'm here today with Rick Adams, Manager of the IT Application Portfolio of Digital Interfaces at Lowe's Home Improvement, and a few members of his team. How you doing, Rick?
Doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. You want to introduce us to some of the people in your team real quick?
Sure. I have with me today Kyle M. Boyer, as part of our software architecture team here in Digital, as well as Stephen Weathers, one of our software engineers and node evangelists, if you will, within the Lowe's enterprise.
Awesome, awesome. So, when we get started here, tell us a bit about your role and the team overall over there at Lowe's Home Improvement.
Sure. So my role here in Lowe's Digital is primarily centered around the management of the applications and teams that drive the presentation tier of our Lowe's Digital properties, both from our consumer and business interfaces here from Lowe's. So I have a team of about 25 developers that work with me, including Kyle and his team from the software architecture team, that really work together to drive the presentation tier of our web properties.
Yes, and as Rick mentioned, I'm Kyle with the architecture team here at Lowe's. My responsibility really kind of involves the upfront and analysis phases of our architecture and our solutioning process to one, identify any gaps if there are any driving towards a target state architecture. Kind of where we want Lowe's.com and our other digital properties to go, and then handing that off to the execution teams and to kind of drive that solution work home.
So, how long has this team been around over at Lowe's?
So this team's been around since 2009. We started building the team out. It's really when Lowe's Digital started to take shape within the company. So coming out of the recession era and of 2007, 2008, the company really started to see the home market continue to grow even through that time frame, and really the need to drive the further investments into a digital space. As new consumer technology began to come out, smartphones, tablets, during that same time frame, the company really began to look at Lowe's Digital as a valuable sales channel for the company, not just a online presence, but a true sales driver. And so we really began to build out the team at that particular time. About 2009, the team was about 2 to 3 web developers. Now we have about 20. So we've grown that team, and we've expanded our portfolio of applications that drive our technology, and we've really seen a lot of growth, both from just from the company itself, but from the technology that we're introducing, the things that we're trying to pioneer, if you will, for a retailer of our size within industry, and it's been really exciting to see the growth and the maturity, if you will, of our development acumen, and kind of where we're going to take the brand.
That sounds great. So you've been around about as long as Node.js has actually been around. So when did Node.js sort of start to come into your stack, and how does it fit in there today?
So we had really started taking a look at Node.js about 2 years ago, taking a serious look, I would say. As one of my colleagues here, Stephen Weathers, I would say he's the Node.js evangelist, because he's always been dropping Node in our ears for quite some time. I think he's got some experience with Node prior to coming into Lowe's Digital. But traditionally we've looked at more off-the-shelf software solutions or larger applications to drive our digital property, and we really began to look at our application portfolio and really trying to figure out how do we start introducing more of the open source software or solutions, which traditionally here has not really been something that's been a part of our process to even look at open source technology. So we've had, over the past couple of years, some new leadership that's come into the company, fresh perspective, that's really opened the door for our teams to make recommendations that, again, traditionally have not really been done in the company. So the Lowe's digital team is kind of on the front line, trying to drive our technology forward. And we were in the middle of a major re-architecture and redesign project for Lowe's.com and our mobile site, which if you go to Lowe's.com or go to the site on your mobile phone, you'll see the new experience. During that project, we really began to take a look at what's the right stack versus just taking everything a lift and shift approach from the old to just putting a new look and feel on the old system. So we really began to take a look at what the right technology stacks need to be to do what our business needs to do, what our brand needs to drive forward, the capabilities and features that we need to introduce. And we had a very good meeting with our executive team, who really looked at us and asked us what we wanted to do. And we really said we wanted to do something open source, but we had a few ideas about that, but we got back with Kyle and the architecture team. Stephen was very instrumental in those conversations, and we started taking a look at a few things, one being Node. And when we looked at it, it really began to make sense. We had a great team here, web developers who were very well skilled in JavaScript. They're probably some of the best developers I've ever had the privilege of working with in 25 years of my career in this space. And so we didn't have to go and find new talent or a new skill set to go source. We already had a great team here. The application made sense just from how it plays into our target state, as Kyle talked about. And we put that together in a presentation. Kyle was very instrumental in socializing that with our executive team, answering a lot of questions, and really getting the support that we needed to take the team's recommendation forward with Node.js. Kyle, you want to talk about a little bit of that process?
Yeah, I mean, so as Rick alluded, it kind of was in somewhat born out of necessity through kind of the years that led up to this redesign. And if we step back to kind of when when e-commerce wasn't as booming and Lowe's.com wasn't as large and feature rich, we were okay, serving kind of the browse product, shop product, and purchase product through kind of a single application. But then, as Rick said, our customers changed, and we have new devices, and these devices have different capabilities, natively and in the browser. And our team starts growing. We just have more expectations to fill, more features to build and put out there. And for a few years, we were just kind of, bolting this on, or spinning this little side app up, and kind of attaching it to Lowe's.com, and add a feature here and inject this here, to the point that it grew to be quite a monolithic application, and quite a daunting process to release and introduce any change, regardless of how small that might have been. So we're in the business of retail, so getting a customer through a checkout process is pretty much priority number one. But in those days, if we had a text change on the product list page, or perhaps even the home page, it required that full application, that big monolithic thing, to be packaged and deployed, and just the risk and the quality assurance behind doing that just became kind of such a daunting thing that our business and our IT people weren't comfortable, keeping up with the pace that the business was asking for things. So, and then comes redesign, right? We're going to redesign Lowe's.com, but the business is still expecting us to be nimble and kind of up our cadence on releasing software and releasing new features and functionality to production. And the mobile space becoming kind of a service-oriented approach started shifting that landscape, and seeing the benefits of becoming a REST-based or a service-based site, we kind of quickly identified, we've got spaces to make thinner presentation applications that we can deploy more rapidly and satisfy the needs of, our ever-changing business, while kind of minimizing that risk of, the monolithic app deployment. So we look to thin out our presentation layer and find the technology that works best with that space. And I think that's ultimately what led up to the final decision on Node. It was great technology for that thin web tier for brokering API requests. And so we mentioned the redesign. We've put 2 of our most trafficked pages currently now running in production on Node.js. And I don't think we would look back at all at that decision.
So what in particular about Node makes it good at these service, as being the service tier? And are you using Node anywhere else in the front end or anything like that?
So right now we are a presentation layer producing kind of the experience, the markup and whatnot, but calling services. And I think we'll look to expand that footprint and expand probably into some API aggregation and things to kind of tailor some of our microservices to be a little bit more client specific or adapted to specific use cases. But and Stephen can probably speak a ton as well as on how Node.js has performed and warrants those heavily trafficked areas.
So Stephen here. Yeah, Node has, one of the things that we liked about Node when we were looking at going with a new technology was the asynchronous model of Node, being able to call multiple services at once, and when they all finish, you can then render a result. With our microservices model that we're trying to adhere to from here on out, allowed us to still deliver a one-page experience that calls 5 different little services and not have to do the traditional waterfall approach of calling each one, waiting for it to finish to call the next one. So Node has been very good on performance, especially at scale, where Node is actually, we're using less resources on Node than we would traditionally in, say, like Java to render a page, because we have small fragmented applications that do one page well rather than a monolithic application as Colin talked about. But the asynchronous model of Node is really what has been really good for us. And then the reuse of our front-end developer skills to work on JavaScript on the back end has also been very nice for us.
Yeah, that combined skill set and combined, not everybody's going to be in both areas, but it's just nice to be able to speak the same language, right?
Yeah, and I think it even, even considering the fact of just maybe not even as far as front end and back end and front end JavaScript and Node, but also just considered a JSON API response becomes much more fluid to handle when that is coming into a Node application or JavaScript and JSON, it becomes such a seamless transition that and I think you see some of that in some of the performance gains of just not having to marshal your data into a structured object or whatever before dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's all great. So, I mean, you've had this team since 2009. As you've kind of introduced Node, how has that shaped the team and some of the processes internally?
So, Stephen here. Traditionally, we had a very segregated team where you had your front end and back end developers. Back end guys worked traditionally on Java, and our front end guys traditionally just worked on all the front end CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. One of the things that we were limited on, it was more of a process that we had here, was the front end developers weren't actually, for the most part, weren't allowed to go into JSPs and change HTML because the back end team owned the application at that level. So by going with Node, I mean, one of the big changes, we were able to take full responsibility of owning the entire stack for the UI, from the back end to the view layer to the actual front end, and we were able to reuse our resources that are well versed in JavaScript and HTML, and they can actually now go into the Node app and actually not only change the HTML, but they actually contribute to even the Node side of things and doing the handlers and the routing and all that as well. So we were able to take more ownership of the UI and kind of let our Java guys focus on our services and our applications that are still on Java, but allow our front-end developers to be more controlling of their entire experience that they were contributing to.
And with that too, we've got a very good relationship with our user experience teams, and that, as Kyle alluded to on a previous topic, that there was an ultimate desire to move the experience forward in a much more rapid pace. Not only does our business expect that, the brand expect that, but our customers demand it. They really expect us to engage with them and to be able to move the digital space for our brand forward at a much more rapid pace. And so we're able to do some really great partnerships with our user experience teams here, collaborate on what these features need to be, and as Steven just mentioned, really kind of put those together very quickly, and even do some prototyping very quickly to do research and to do some user testing, and then take that idea or that concept and then actually, in a very quick turnaround, be able to take that to a production level feature and release it without putting the other parts of our application stack at risk. So it's really opened the mindset organizationally of how we're able to think differently. So we've had a pattern up until just this year of thinking very big releases, very long time frames. It really kind of closed the door to iterative types of processes to iterate on a feature versus do it all at one time. I think we really kind of opened that door to say we can do things quicker, get them in market, test, evaluate, improve, and it's really opened some eyes to the potential here to think differently than we've ever been able to in the past 5-6 years.
That's great. I love hearing this kind of stuff. I really love it. So y'all made it out to the first Node Interactive last year up in Portland. You want to tell me just a bit about your experience up there and how that all went?
Sure. Myself and Kyle's member of Kyle's team, Mike Hiskus, he and I went out last year to Portland. We made this decision to go forward with Node, and we kind of looked at each other and said, well, I guess we better figure out what this is all about from a community standpoint. And I know, so we went out to Portland last year, went to the conference, and I have to say it's probably one of the best conferences I've had the privilege of attending. It's a really great conference for developers and for professionals in this space. What I was really pleased to be a part of and to witness in the sessions was this was a conference for developers by developers. I think most other conferences we go to that are centered around a particular box type of shrink wrap software. It's more of a sales pitch than it is anything else, and this was not that at all. This was really diving into use cases, and actually was refreshing to see the speakers actually put code on the big screens and execute code and talk about their process and improvements. And it's really a great way for the community as a whole to come together, share ideas, network. We built some great partnerships with some folks that we ran into out there, and it just really solidified not only the technology is sound, but that the community is great. And it's great that we as Lowe's and our teams are part of this community, and we look forward to being a bigger part.
That's fantastic, and we'll see you out this year as well, right?
We will have yes, we will have actually a bigger delegation from the Lowe's team than we did last year. I think we've got about 5-6 folks coming out. Steven's coming out. I think maybe Kyle too. We'll be out there. Hopefully we can meet some of the folks that are watching the hangout or will watch the hangout later. And we look forward to meeting everyone and really collaborating and sharing a little bit more and maybe a little deeper from what we have done and lessons we've learned. And we'd love to hear the same thing from our community team members. That's
great. That's great. We'll all look forward to seeing you. On that note, I think that's a great place to end it. I want to thank you all for coming out. This was a really great conversation. A little bit longer than our usual ones, actually. So it's been really pleasant. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. Anytime.
Take care.